right, we've got echoes everywhere, left and right, and, well, in the center as well. In the center of a lot of action at the moment, it is Dan Worthington there in Utah in the US of A. Great to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you too.
Mate, looking forward to a very interesting show. Now, of course, this is Freedom Fridays, but we're doing it a bit early this week, just very, very early indeed. Of course, I don't know if you noticed, it is Monday here on Edge Radio Australia and the rest of the world. What we're going to talk about is there has been yet another attempt on, on the life, okay, the life of.
There I am.
Oh no, sorry about the distraction there. I have turned off the mic there for, of course, the shaved monkey to my right, because you're not normally there
today.
You are. You're looking respectable. I'm a bit concerned about that. Now, before we talk fashion, we're not going to do that. We're going to get straight to the facts. I want to welcome, of course, Derek to the show, mate. Great to see you.
Great to be here.
I believe we might even have somebody on the line later on as well that Shak will be joining us with a bit of luck. But for the moment, let's get into it, Dan. Let's talk about what's going on in the US at the moment. This is hot news, mate.
Well, yeah, somebody tried to set up to make another attempt on Trump's life while he's playing golf. Secret Service intervened and fired shots at the potential assailant. The assailant tried to flee. He went to his car. He was pursued and caught. So that's what we know right now. But they tried it again. And I think they'll continue to try, especially if they have any fear at all that Trump is going to be elected this fall. That would tremendously disrupt their plans for global domination and the destruction of the freedom of the American people and for the destruction and erosion of our economy, which is all part of making us even more and more dependent on the federal government.
Now, just appearing on your screens, you will find the man, the myth, the legend. It is Shak. Let's get into it now. Okay, we've rushed the show today, as you can probably see, and I'm having to sit next to the monkey. So that in itself shows how much we've had to rush because I'm out of my comfort zone. But look, Shak's enjoying the show so much he's already left.
Just kind of. Maybe he had to take a smoke or something. I don't know.
Maybe he did.
I think quietly he needs some Heroes brew.
There he is. There he is. Hey, buddy. Look, I want to.
Hey, Shak.
Shak, I want to hear your opinion of what's just happened in the last 12 hours or so.
Look, so the initial report was just that there was shots near the golf course. And so I thought, look, the media wouldn't do it a second time. Like the first time, it was just like, Donald Trump falls over and, Donald Trump startled by a loud noise and all this sort of stuff. I thought the media's not going to do that a second time. So I didn't really pay too much attention to it because it sounded like, I don't know, something was happening somewhere away from him. And then obviously, more news reports came out. I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. How could somebody be able to get that close to a former president, any former president, whether it be Donald Trump or anybody else? How could that happen? But especially when that former president is a presidential candidate, it's a very contentious time. You'd think that they'd have security beefed up pretty significantly.
Clearly.
So not. I'm pretty. It's pretty disturbing. Interestingly, there hasn't actually been a bump in the betting markets on him. I was rather expecting people would have a stronger view that he would win the election, especially in light of the whistleblower from ABC saying that the debate questions were leaked to the Kamala Harris campaign, and they had agreed to fact check him and not fact check her and not ask her certain questions and things like that. So
let's visit that. Because that is such blatant cheating, and that is corruption of the ABC.
Same thing happened with Hillary.
So I find
noticing a pattern here, right?
It's
because the first debate there was an attempted assassination on Trump.
True.
And now we're following a pattern here, a second debate, and then just bang. And I don't mean that, no pun intended. But
I took the pun.
Yeah.
Can I just throw this forward though? I want to say this first and foremost. G'day there, Damo. I'd love to have you on board, mate. Really fantastic to see you there. And I'd love to know your opinions. But okay.
Are you sure about that? This is Damo we're talking about.
Look, I'm looking forward to them, trust me. But I want to throw this out there is, okay, this is the difference between how I think about the candidates. All right, like okay, I think about Joe Biden when he was feeble and well, he still is feeble, but as a candidate, I think about word salad central with Kamala. Right? Do you know what I thought about when I heard that they tried to assassinate him on a golf course? I honestly thought,
well, it was a good shot.
No,
it was a chip in.
I thought to myself,
Cheap shot.
Honestly, boom, boom, boom. This is I went through my mind is, I wonder if he'll finish this round, right? Because he's become so cool under pressure. You look what happened, obviously, with the last step. He is just this has become so much part of how he is. And do I want a man running the free world who is that cool that he'll go, you know what, I've got 3 holes to go, I'll just knock those off?
Well, that's what he didn't want to go off the course. He actually was heading for a birdie and he wanted to finish
there you go. No one wants to lose a birdie.
Yeah.
I wonder if he took a mulligan.
Now hang on okay.
I thought my jokes were bad.
You've been hanging out with this fella too long. What's going on? All right, look, Derek, actually go further on that though, mate, because you've obviously got some fresh information. So,
well, yeah, apparently he didn't want to come off because it was like, oh, it's just so close, to getting that birdie and that sort of stuff. And I mean, let's face it, Trump is a competitive person.
Just a little.
He is in business. He is in politics. So, on the sports field, why would it be any different? Totally. And there you go. He's been doing that. What's interesting about that though is one of the reports that I heard come through was from those who were involved with the security, and apparently a sitting president. If he was a sitting president, they said, quote unquote, that they would have closed off the entire golf course and all that sort of thing. But because he's not, it was limited to the Secret Service activity. Gotcha. I mean, seriously, how far do you have to go? You've taken a bullet to the ear.
Yeah.
Right. Beef up the guy's security, for goodness sake. But
didn't they beef up JFK's kids?
Yeah,
security?
they did. They did. Yeah, that was what I heard. But okay, I'm wondering about this. Okay, you're at a golf course. Okay, I don't know a lot about golf. Okay, I know I'm really bad at it. I know it ruins a good walk. Right, but I like the cart. But here's the thing: like when people go on the golf course, they go on the golf clubs, right? So if you see someone with an AK-47, I reckon he's not there to play golf.
Probably not.
Probably not.
He was on the other side of the fence, is what I was led to believe, and that he had the muzzle through the fence, and that's where they spotted it, pointing at Trump.
My question is, like, at what point do the Secret Services, the FBI, the CIA, all these people that are supposed to be doing intelligence and finding out what's going on around him, at what point do they actually start doing their job? At what point do they need to start being held accountable for what they're doing?
I think the question becomes, is there a mole inside?
Of course there is. And we already knew that. Like, in his first term, we knew there was a mole inside. They fired most of them. Yeah. And then they wrote books against him.
That's right.
So it's...
I think that could be... I think that could be slightly overstating it, guys. I don't think that there's a Secret Service person there that's conspiring with people to try and kill the president. I think there's just a lot of complacency. I'd like to know why there's not drones and things like that. But the other thing that's interesting about this is I've only just seen one picture of the guy, and we're not talking about a young person. I mean, the other shooter was a 20-year-old, just out of high school. This guy looks like he's a bit older.
He's in his late 50s. He's 58. Yeah.
Right. So the question is he part of the LGBT?
What happens if the media is constantly telling you that, or is putting it out there that he's a threat to democracy and all this sort of stuff? This is unfortunately one of the results. Especially we've been hearing it for almost a decade. Our Prime Minister, in his wisdom, has just actually increased the travel advisory to the United States, the first time in over a decade, where it's moved from being a possible to a probable a country to experience terrorism-related events. So that's problematic. I think the United States really needs to get a grip on its political situation and become a bit more.
What's interesting about the alleged attempted assassin is the fact that apparently he was recruiting or trying to recruit people to fight in the Ukraine war. People have gone onto his social media site and tried to ring that number. His mobile number is on there. It goes to his voicemail. Yeah, it's funny how people don't waste any time with this. So if he's, again, alleged attempted assassin. And apparently if you look at his social media pages, there's a lot that's going on there in relation to the Ukraine war. is
Right,
interesting,
Ukraine war. Okay, so I mean, we all know it's a proxy war. We really, anybody who's got any level of intellect knows this is a proxy war of really the US. It's a NATO thing against Putin, right? Okay, so this guy, he's fed all of the politics, he's fed all the propaganda, all the rubbish that comes from the West, Western media, that is. Look, okay, they keep saying again that Trump's this threat to democracy, right? Now we've got the I'll get this. I'll get it yet. The Republicans. Yeah, well, sorry, mate.
Well, you fit right in out Democrats.
I'm watching so much Kamala. I've got a bit of her problems here, but I find it crazy that they keep saying how violent MAGA people are. This, that, all negatives towards the Republicans. And the ones who are trying to kill people and the people who are trying to kill Democratic candidates are all bloody Democrats. It's just the hypocrisy is off the charts.
Okay, I think that they're alleging that the alleged attempted assassin, however you're going to word that,
sure,
was a donor to the Democrat Party. Now,
yeah, he was.
Yeah.
So does that make him the Democrat Party an accomplice?
No, it doesn't. And
Damn.
I think that's what you've
It was worth a shot.
separate here.
Yeah, okay.
No pun intended.
I think you guys should just be grateful that it's not a Republican, because a Republican can probably shoot properly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, first of all, he'd actually pick the right gun for it, like a long distance shot with an AK.
With an AK-47, that's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to say something that I don't know too much about. But yeah, who puts a scope on an AK-47 and tries to shoot from a distance?
Like, just Google it. Like, can you use an AK-47 as a sniper rifle?
Not really, no.
No, you can't.
You shouldn't.
I mean, I never. I didn't have an AK-47, but I was shooting rabbits at 12 and 13 before they took all of our guns away. So,
Can't say nothing.
But it was that far away, really. So
that wasn't 300 feet there, or 300 yards or something.
Yeah, something like that.
So anyway, we do have a few comments from Damo. He's chimed in. I was running through them. The problem is I normally sit over there where I can actually see the screen, but because I've had to relocate, we've got an issue with that microphone jack. So the border to the south is open. People unchecked, moved all around the state at taxpayers' dimes.
Yep.
It would be really interesting to see if this guy is pro-immigration or not. I'm just trying to find, again, I've got to...
But how could you be that pro-immigration? Like, you could be pro-immigration, or you could just be let our country get invaded by 20 million people. I mean, it's absurd. I mean, we're sitting here complaining about the immigration we've had. Can you imagine being an American?
Can you imagine the entire Australian population migrating in 1 year?
It would just change the dynamic of the country.
And this cats and dogs thing, I don't think that Trump should have said it, because it was just silly, but it's kind of worked, I think, because now the whole country's talking about immigration again when they'd stopped talking about it for a little while. And, then you get all the memes coming out, which I think is quite funny.
Did you get
Eric Swalwell, on September 11 of all days, Eric Swalwell has a go at the GOP chair of the judiciary, or judicial committee chair, whatever the position is, for a tweet that he posted or something. But I do want to just say this. If you've got that amount of immigration, if you go to Springfield, there's a few documentaries that are out there, or a few YouTube videos and stuff. And when they interview the residents say things like this. They go, look, we are going to be homeless ourselves soon because the immigrants are getting payments and getting their housing paid for, which is pushing up rental prices. We can't afford to stay in our houses anymore, and there's no assistance for us. There was one guy there who was like a World War II vet or a Vietnam vet or something. And it was probably Vietnam, I think. And he was saying, look, I'm getting like $800 a month, and these guys are getting $3,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where am I supposed to go? And that's the real thing. It's not about being anti-immigration. It's not about being racist. It's when people who have lived in the country for a long time can't afford to survive, it's natural, it's normal for them to start to get unhappy. You see this in the UK, where there's, I've heard, I haven't verified this yet, but I've heard them saying that they're taking away the winter payments for UK residents or UK citizens.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I can understand why the citizens of the UK are going to start saying, hey, look, you're spending all of this money on immigration, none of the money on us. Hey, it's not fair. and people, the politicians, just are ignoring that, and then they're wondering why they've got so much social upheaval.
Yep.
Do
Now,
any
I
of
just
you, yeah?
sorry, I just
No,
want to
go.
jump in on this one because
Go.
my wife is a migrant.
Yep.
So a lot of people, especially from Southeast Asian countries, Arabic countries, they don't drink, they don't smoke. A lot of Chinese people smoke, but that's different. So what happens is a lot of these welfare payments as well. This is just the icing on the cake. They're like, why are we paying so much money for you guys to be here just to send all the money back home?
Right. Okay.
And a lot of them do. A vast majority of them that are here on welfare payments are sending a large percentage of it back to whatever country they originally came from. So not only are they paying for the people here, they're also paying for whoever is overseas. Now, if you go have a look at the families that aren't being checked when they come into here, who do have those terrorist links, how much of that money is actually also going to funding terrorism as well?
Yeah.
Oh, look, I don't know. I think that's a reach, but
Oh, trust me, it's not.
No, it's not. It's not a reach.
It's absolutely not a reach. Okay. So it happens daily. Have a look at all the over in Australia. Dan might not know about this one. The amount of level of funding that goes to daycare centers.
Yeah.
How many of those daycare centers don't actually exist? And and we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars a year are being sent offshore.
I'm telling you right now, I know of one that was near where we used to be.
Spot on. It's a daycare center with one office.
A
what the hell?
daycare center with one office and no kids. That's interesting.
So this isn't that they know about it. There was reports on the news about it. So this is a constant thing, and it needs to be stamped out. It needs to be addressed immediately. Our Vietnam veterans, our disabled people, like genuine disabled people here. I'm talking about the people who are stuck at home, like especially grandparents who are stuck with their grandkids because their kids can't look after their kids. They're the ones that need help. They're the ones that need to be supported. For me, even with a migrant and wife, I don't understand why we're sending so much money just to pander to one group of people who can't even vote.
Well, they do. Well,
they can't. Not until they're Australian citizens.
Yeah, no.
Well, in America they can, but not here they
can't.
But
in Australia, how many of them are becoming Australian citizens for that very reason?
How many of the asylum seekers are getting insane amounts of money? Crazy when they should have been resettled over in the country back where
on the US front, I want to throw this out to all of you actually. Okay, I'm hearing this and I want it verified because I don't know if this is fact or not, but I'm told that there's $150,000 financial incentive for migrants in the US to buy homes. Is that true?
So how much?
150,000
for migrants to buy homes.
Yes,
in Australia or America?
In the US. In the US.
It's a California program, I think.
Well, it sounds.
So it does exist. It does exist, does it?
No,
Yeah.
I'm asking the question. Sorry, Dan, it does exist, yeah?
Well, they're trying to get it passed. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay. There you go. I just couldn't believe it. Such a look. Obviously, that's going to change the pricing of things. It's going to create more homeless as well for those American citizens. And you're giving homes to migrants that you could be looking after your own. So
they just can't work out why people might be unhappy about it.
I can't see why. Jeez.
Yeah, figure it out. I don't know.
The most frustrating part about it is this is a bi-party thing. Like it's not just Labor versus Liberals or people who are on the Conservative side versus people who are on the Libertarian side of things. If you can't afford to have a house, it doesn't matter what side of politics you're on. You don't be pissed off at the government. So I've just never seen an issue like cost of living be universally hated by both sides of politics. But yet the government are continually to do what's going to make it worse. It's just a supply and demand issue at this stage. They keep bringing people in. They go, oh, I wonder why inflation's so bad.
Shak mentioned the UK. What's interesting about that is they've got a program now where prisoners are getting out early in terms of their sentences because of the crowding. It's rumored, of course, too, with all the laws that we're doing in terms of hate speech and that.
You got to make room, mate.
Yeah.
Get those murderers and rapists out as quickly as you can, because you know what? Oh, look, a mum from South London has just basically said something honest about an immigrant who's raped a local child. I mean that's really, this is how it is. It's just this is.
I'm stunned at that
speech.
I'm absolutely stunned at that in the UK. I mean, I don't know whether that might be a little bit exaggerated, but it doesn't sound right. But if that's true, that people are getting locked up for up to 12 months because they put up a social media post or a meme or something the government doesn't like. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I'm surprised it hasn't been challenged. Like that just sounds like such an overreach and such an overstep.
And the overreach is worse, Shak. Going to go overseas as well. Anyone who speaks outside their borders and in other countries.
Mhm.
And I think what the target is, of course, is Elon Musk in many ways.
Oh, no
They
doubt.
see him as a facilitator. We've looked at the guy who was the founder of Telegram. He was detained in France recently.
That's right.
So we're seeing these kind of moves, and I'm going, these sound very coordinated, these efforts, right?
So-
Yeah, look at the patterns
Have you
on
ever
all the
seen the
different
world-
Western nations.
But have you ever seen the world move in such a coordinated way? You think about all the years in the past. Maybe I wasn't aware. I don't know, but to me, it does seem like we're hinking so much to that one World Cup.
Do you remember when we saw the article
Almost.
that where NBC, CNN, and all that was doing the articles about misinformation, and every single one of the news agencies across
Verbatim.
multiple different stations were reading the exact same script about misinformation?
Ridiculous.
So yes, that's isolated to America, but you have a look around the world; they're all doing it now. Just in regards to the British government, arresting, investigating people who speak out against them, we've got friends in the non-mainstream media who have actually been investigated in Australia for what they've said.
Yes, they have.
So I don't know if this has been made public yet or not. So I'm not going to say who it is, but I just find it amazing that that's the sort of reach there they've got. Like it dumbfounds me.
Travis, okay, a particular person here in Western Australia who has very interesting ties to the government scene employed a private investigator on me.
Yeah.
This is what's happening. Okay.
Yeah, but that's in Australia, the most corrupt country in the world.
This is, it's real. Okay.
No,
It's like,
we are. We are.
Oh, no. See, we incentivize bribery to politicians.
Oh,
So we
yeah,
actually get tax
absolutely.
cuts on bribery.
We do.
So I still think you guys do it in a much grander scale. We reward it.
Well, yeah, I understand the Democrats were involved in the funding and receiving money with respect to the sex trade in Mexico and other places around the world. They're part of it. So I mean, that's pretty corrupt.
Yep. So just going back now, I'd like to bring it back to the elections. Dan, have you seen any swing or any support from the Democratic side of things to protect Trump further with all these assassination attempts?
Oh, they're they're just gonna give it lip service. Of course, they want him dead. They don't want him to survive. That's that if Trump is taken out, then their problem is done. See, the problem is that they have a globalist agenda. Democrats are on board with it. So are many of the Republicans who are rhinos. They've been bought, paid, and delivered by the wealthiest cabals in the world, and that's how they're getting their retirement funds padded and everything else. And so they have absolutely no incentive. They don't want Trump elected again because Trump just tried to disrupt their plans before, affected the IMF and everything else and some of the funding mechanisms that they were using, and also put a big push on sex slave traffic and everything else, wanted to build the wall for the same reason. And so he was an enemy to their agenda, and they want to do everything and anything to prevent him from being elected. And if they can't do that, they're probably going to try to take him out. Eventually, they'll succeed, especially since they probably have some of the intelligence agencies that were involved in other presidential assassinations, probably involved in this one as well, if I had my guess, because that's how normally it works.
They're very deep seated, these organizations. This has been happening for a very long time.
It has. They're evil, is what they are.
Yeah.
And,
Look, we're now seeing it very, very clearly because of the information that's out there with the internet, and people are able to communicate and actually share their ideas. And obviously, there's been this massive, massive surge in independent media like ourselves and so many others out there. There is information out there now. You're not just getting it from 3 sources, pretty much.
So my next question as well, we've seen America very close come up into arms January 6th and a few other times. If they actually do succeed in killing Trump, do you think it will actually go to open hostilities?
That's what they want. That would sort of complete their junta, so to speak. They've been picking a fight with real Americans for decades, right? Wanting them to enter into armed conflict to defeat them. The problem is they control the military and other means, and American people, although we're armed, we're not capable of dealing with our military and potential UN troops that would come in also and support. Uh, you know, so it. I don't know how it's going to end, but it's just really discouraging to me. I think ultimately the only solution is probably going to be a religious solution that, like I've mentioned before, I think this is all part of the culmination of times and the evil people who are trying to steal the freedom of the free people of the world to create their own agenda and their own master class. I think that's probably what we're seeing. Communism. If you ever did you see the Reagan movie? The Reagan movie is really quite good.
Oh, really?
Communism. Yeah, it's
Uh,
out now.
I thought,
The Reagan movie. It's all about freedom. It's all about uh, you know. The problem we're seeing now is we're seeing communism was never really the the face of the problem. The problem was the intellectuals and the other elitists that were trying to control and eliminate the freedom and independence of people to be able to
Well,
choose
then,
for themselves.
the fact of the matter is, communism will never, ever, ever work because of the reality of survival of the fittest. Okay,
and I'm more equal than you,
more
Aaron.
equal, exactly right there, and because of personality types. Okay, if you have people who are sociopaths or psychopaths or narcissists, they're always going to want to achieve that control and power. This is what human beings are.
Well,
That's
yeah, and even in communism, you got the oligarchs. The
of
Chinese
course,
have their own ruling class. It's just one form of serfdom right after another. It's really the same thing, right? It's just corruption and power and money. It has nothing. And so God intended us to be a free people, to be able to choose for ourselves, to be able to choose to do those things which are good or not, and we pay the price for those decisions. And these people are disrupting things and creating situations where they're trying to control thought and other expressions of people, limit the free speech of people around the world, and trying to control the narrative. And to a large extent in the United States, they're succeeding because people are not smart enough to do their own research and go deep enough to understand what's really going on. Anybody that has a military background or an intelligence background can see clearly what's going on. But people who are living in their mom and pop houses and just watching TV, they get deceived by these people, and it's really sad. Because Kamala Harris is one of the biggest threats to democracy America has ever faced because of her politics and because of her policies. Not the ones that she's spouting from her mouth, but the ones she believes in deep core in herself that she has previously expressed. She is dangerous and she will be a real threat to the future of America.
Now we've got Shak there, who of course is our our spiritual lefty here. I'd love to know your opinion here.
Well, it takes a real man to wear a pink shirt.
It
so,
does.
Yeah.
It does. That man is in touch with his feelings and the feelings of many others, I'm sure.
He loves to feel other people.
It is the Royal Flying Doctors Service shirt.
Oh, you
So,
go. That's a fantastic
yeah.
shirt.
That's why it's pink.
Well, my opinion on what on Kamala Harris or
Well, the entire situation, mate. I mean, obviously, look, I joke about the lefty thing, obviously, but I do, I do like the balance you bring to some. Sometimes we get a little, headstrong here. I'm trying to find some reason why these, and I just think they're monsters. I really do. I mean, those who are running the Democratic Party, what they're doing to the American people, I'm just trying to find some reason. Is there something I'm missing? Right? Is there some reason they want to be doing this? Is there some greater good that some I just can't get my sights on?
so? As far as I can work out, Look, I would consider myself to be sort of a centre-right person. It means I understand when people say stuff on the left, higher wages and better working conditions and, things like that, community funded healthcare and education, all that sort of stuff. Like, I get it. I understand that. And I think we're very lucky to live in countries that provide that. However, there has to be a balance. You don't want to go too far with that because you take away people's choices and you drive taxes too high. Now, you don't want there to be no regulations at all because then big corporations can take advantage of vulnerable people, or they can cheat the system and not give you the product that you want, or you don't have safety rules and things like that. But I think the biggest problem that I can see is that the left seems to be wanting to force things upon the populace. I mean, I think if you take a poll, the overwhelming majority of people, if you were to have a referendum on immigration in this country, the overwhelming people would not support the amount of immigration that we've had.
No.
Right? It doesn't matter if you're left or right, because people are struggling. It's not healthy for us right now. We can't handle it right now, and it's making the situation worse. So, I would dare suggest the same thing in the United States. But my theory on this is that there's a lot of people who, if they, why do so many very wealthy people support left-wing causes? I believe it's because they can make money out of it.
Yeah.
Because if you're a service provider, hey, fantastic, right? You're going to receive money for each person that you're providing a service to, or telling the government you're providing a service to. And so it's big money, and it's a lot of money. So you just go along with it. And I think that that's what's really going on. The other thing I think is that there seems to be this idea that we've moved to the left, given our last few elections, but that's actually not really true. If you look at our last election here in Australia, Albo got in with, a third of the vote, so almost 7 out of 10 Australians.
Well, I don't know what that was, but okay.
Almost 7 out of 10 Australians didn't vote for him.
Mhm.
We've seen this in the UK with Keir Starmer's election. A lot of people think that the Labour Party winning indicates that the UK moved to the left, but if you actually have a look at the numbers and you have a look at the quirks of their system, actually the Labour Party didn't do that well. The Tories did abysmally, but the Labour Party doesn't actually have that sort of support. And I think that's why you've seen that Albo is actually not that popular a Prime Minister, because the ideas that he maybe thinks Australians are after are not what we're after. And I dare say, although I'm not quite as knowledgeable about it, but I dare say that's probably what's happening in the UK, that what Keir Starmer's doing is not really in line with the expectations of the British people. And just one last thing, we're also seeing that when they say they're open for immigration, they're open for immigration unless you're wealthy. For some bizarre reason, they don't want to set up the sort of conditions that would attract the wealthy. And I think I've said this on a previous show. If you have a look at some of those really moneyed up areas in London, where billionaires and millionaires from the world would flock to, they've all started leaving, is what the current reports are, as a result of them ending the non-domicile taxation system. Why would you do that? It just doesn't make any sense.
I think it does. I mean, it's all about buying votes. When it comes to a Labor government of any description or any of these mobs, they just import voters. They do, and that's why they go for poor. Because quite frankly, poor generally means lower education, which generally means that they're easily manipulated.
But look at how unhappy the poor are. I mean, as I said, you got to have a look at what's happening in Springfield, Ohio. Those people are not wealthy. In fact, most people, well, I won't say most people, there are big parts of rural America which really aren't that wealthy, and they're not voting for Democrats.
Right.
And what they're saying is them being displaced by an influx of immigration. I mean, I think most people are happy to see immigrants come to our countries and make a new life for themselves and contribute. I'm an immigrant. Well, I was born in Australia, but my family immigrated here. All of you guys are related to people who have immigrated here.
Yep.
So, that is the Australian spirit, the American spirit. We're very welcoming nations, but not to the point where it overloads the rest of our services.
And it has overloaded the services. You just look at the fact that we've got so many people who are homeless. Okay, there's so many people who are stuck in the rental trap. We've got now effectively 2 generations who will never own a home in this country, and then I think that trend is pretty much over. Yeah, I know you've got those ideas, mate. I do, and I understand them, I'm telling you, okay. Right, I'm telling you right now, if you're 20 years old and you
Yeah.
live in Sydney right now, you're raised there, okay? Without your parents' help, you're never going to own a home.
Don't buy a house in Sydney.
Yeah, but you know what?
Buy
Okay,
an
but
investment property in Tasmania, South Australia, WA, Northern Territory. Like there's options out
where are
there.
you going to live? Where are you going to live? And where can
Rent
you
a
sleep?
house.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I can rent a house. You know what? That is a silly answer, mate.
Why?
You think
It
of
works. We did it.
Yeah, okay, you did it, and that's great. But you're away from your family unit, all of that, right? And you have a right, as far as I'm concerned, you have a right to be with the people you love.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to
So
move
at no
8
point.
hours away.
So at no point did I say move house.
You said, yeah, get an investment place and rent, right? Now, most people don't
Yes.
have the financial capability to do both.
I live with mum and dad. We already know, like, unless you're like 40, you're still living at home.
Yeah,
that's something normal for the Democrats, you know, live in mum and dad's basement. But the
Well,
thing is,
with
so
Biden.
just this is a
Not
good
work.
segue, because you need to understand the system that you live in if you
I
want to
get
get ahead. So same as what Shaq was saying. So yeah,
The
they
point
might
is-
have got through with 30% for when the Labor Party win the things, but they knew how much they could get away with and maintain power. So there's a heap of bills that are unpopular, which the elites want them to push through.
Yeah.
So they go, right, how far can we push the Australian people and still maintain power? They'll ram through as many policies as they can, and then they let the other people have a turn. Then they bag out major like liberals for
True.
helping major corporations. They'll ram through a whole heap of laws, like rules and regulations that they want, and then they just flip a coin and change sides again.
Yeah.
So again, the general population needs to understand the system that they're in. I've got no sympathy for people who sit there, go buy $25 avocados on toast every day for breakfast, or
Right.
spending $10 for a coffee at Starbucks,
Mm.
and then complain they can't get a house.
I think he's having a go at me there, but never mind.
Of course I am. I haven't got anyone who doesn't own a house. So, sorry, I'm being like, yes,
No,
I am being a bit harsh,
No,
but
and I will take
you
that.
are the
and have a
product
picture.
of your lifestyle.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, say when you're trading on the markets, is the market ever wrong?
Nope.
No, the market is always right. The housing market is always right. The value of the houses are the value of the houses because that's what the market has set.
Yes.
Now, if you want to get into that market, you need to work to the systems for that market. There's no point sitting there bitching and moaning about it and not taking anything about
I
it.
thoroughly agree. There's no good bitching and moaning. You need action. You need
To understand the system.
Yes,
and you need to
do.
get yourself educated. And
Yes,
that's why I highly recommend that all those people out there,
Yep.
I nearly called them idiots, but all the people out there that are complaining about housing market, they need to understand the financial systems.
Sure.
And that's why they need to go to blueskyfactory.com.au, sign up to Derek's course, Building the Wealth Foundation. What's the new one you're doing out at the moment?
Prepare to Prosper 2024.
Prepare
There
to
you
Prosper
go.
2024. My wife's in the course at the moment. She's loving it. And she keeps going, oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm like, honey, just finish your course first. Anyway, so you need to get yourself educated. You need to understand what the system you're in. And if you don't like the system you're in, then get out.
Yeah. Okay.
So
okay.
I'll just add to that. Look, I understand the frustration that you're expressing there, and I think a lot of people do. I certainly think that there are things that we can do. Not something I normally ask for. I don't normally advocate for the government to intervene, but certainly we can do things to help first home buyers get into their first home. And that's something I think that we should be doing as a country. We don't want to do what they've done in New Zealand, where they've tried to artificially, they've put restrictions on foreign investment into New Zealand in order to cool the property market. That makes absolutely no sense as far as I'm concerned. Having said that, I've been saying a lot lately, you know, most of us are not going to be able to change the world, but we can change our own world. And a good way to do that is to look for investments within your own country that are a bit cheaper. Look for investments overseas. Look at getting a second residency or citizenship. Look for options outside of Australia. You can still live here, but you know, perhaps there is a way to build wealth somewhere else. And there's a lot of places around the world where you can go and buy a property for 100 or 200,000.
Yeah. So there's insane amount of markets, and with the internet, the speed of travel we can do at the moment, your markets are opening up more and more and more. And if you don't sit there and complain, oh, I can't buy my first home in the Sydney CBD, well, of course you can't.
I get that, mate. And I get that.
Even during my grandparents' time, they couldn't buy a house in the CBD of Sydney.
Yeah, you moved to the outer suburbs. That's how it was done before.
I think the problem that a lot of Australians wrestle with is the sense of entitlement. I've noticed that some people, not all, but some people who work within the public service,
Australians are lazy.
Who work within the public service have this assumption that, you know, I should get my retirement, I should get my entitlements, et cetera, et cetera. And my thinking is, don't bank that in 10, 20 years,
It'll
you
be
will
there.
have a pension. All right. Don't think like that. You are putting your entire investment future assuming that will happen. Right.
So-
Good point.
And the other issue too is nobody owes you anything, right? The market
Correct.
pays you for what you produce.
Mhm.
So if you create great value in the marketplace,
Sure.
it will reward you accordingly. If you produce poor effort in the marketplace,
Yep.
it will reward you accordingly.
Mhm.
All right.
Mhm.
So what value are you actually bringing to the marketplace? That's why there are differentiations in salary for
Sure,
different
of
and certain
course.
careers and jobs, right? Because there's certain jobs that anybody can do versus specialized job. Now, I'm not saying there are weaknesses in going specialized as well,
Mhm.
because often you are trading your time for money. So you only get, all of us are given 24 hours a day,
That's right.
7 days a week. How are you utilizing that time? And how can you set up things where, there's a difference between active income versus passive income, right? Where money pours in while you are sleeping.
I cannot possibly just reinforce enough that people need to look at passive income, because people just don't. In the everyday world, people go get their jobs, do their thing. They don't think about passive income. We all need to be taught this. And of course, you're not going to be taught that in school, because education is not really about you. Okay. It's about the system,
Mhm.
right? So if we could get people educated, people actually realize that this is a fundamental way that you need to think of your life, things would change.
And the other thing I think is that people have been pulling the one lever
Mhm.
in terms of finance and investments. Australians has always been about property.
Yep.
Well, now that the property market has changed considerably, including the fact that many local state governments are making it harder and harder and reducing the incentives for a landlord to actually invest in those areas, you have to start thinking differently, going, okay, what other investments are there outside of property perhaps, or in this space, in this world? You've got to be able to pivot and move and change and be flexible. I think that's a lot of the rut that people get into, a mindset, well, it's always worked this way, therefore it should always, the world is about to change, guys.
Yeah,
Big
so-
time.
no doubt about it.
Wake up.
One of the things I just also want to, because this is supposed to be a political show, not a finance show.
Yes.
So bring it back to the politics side of things. So in Australia, negative gearing is a massive thing. Like a lot of people do it. It only lasts for a couple of years. And everyone's saying, oh no, negative gearing is the reason why all our house prices are so high. It's not. There's multiple different things. But if you remove negative gearing, you remember, you're not adding more properties to the market. You're not taking more houses out of the market. You're not taking the investors and the purchasers out of the market.
Okay.
The supply and demand is still the same.
All right.
So the prices, you might temporarily drop for a little bit, but it'll come straight back up again, because A, you're not pulling people out of the market, and B, you're not adding houses to the market.
That's right.
So the market itself is not going to change.
The negative gearing is just an attempt by government to do two things. One, to do a cash grab, and two, to deflect blame. Look at all those people accusing the tax code. So I want to say a couple of things.
And reduce
Firstly,
responsibility, so they don't have to do state housing. An investor will do it for them.
Look, and
I want to say two things on this. So firstly, Derek makes a comment about relying on the government for your pension. Well, how's that working out in the United States? I mean, at the moment, a lot of people don't realize the extent of what's going on with the US. They've currently got $35 trillion in debt, but according to the debt clock, and there is some dispute as to how accurate that is, but according to the debt clock, they've got $170 trillion in unfunded liabilities. $170 trillion. That is owed in Medicare, in the Medicare Trust Fund, which is running out of money as we speak, and the Social Security Trust Fund, which starts to run out of money in 2028 and 2032. So we're only talking 1 or 2 election cycles from now. So if you're relying on that, and that's the only thing you're relying on, you've got some problems. Now, Australia is generally run a little bit better than the United States, and certainly our debt levels are not anywhere near as high. So, we're at least only at 50% of our GDP. They're over 120% at the moment. But, it's a problem. It's a really, really significant problem. And I think that, as Derek said, you've got to be out there looking for things that you can do. In relation to negative gearing, if they end that, people have to think about what is it they're actually talking about. Because most people, when they purchase a property and they're negative gearing it because the rental price doesn't cover all of the costs of owning that property. But that's for right now. Generally, within a few years, the rental price has gone up and you're no longer negative geared. The second thing is that across most Western countries, you can deduct the amortization of the property itself. So what that means is if you buy a property for $1 million, 500,000 of that is land and 500,000 of that's building. The cost of that building is depreciated in Australia. I believe it's depreciated around 4% per year over 25 years. So if you remove those sorts of deductions, what you've just done is you've basically given an incentive for Australians to invest in other asset classes where perhaps the deductions will be clearer, whilst at the same time allowing foreigners to be able to actually invest in our properties. Because remember, the capital gains tax, you don't have to pay it in the country where the capital gain was generated. According to most countries, the capital gain is generated where you live. So if you're an Australian property investor, you just move to New Zealand. Problem solved.
Problem solved. Now, this is actually what this conversation's done. It's probably the best advertisement we could possibly do for the greater wealth, because greater wealth obviously is talking about the way that the finance and politics combine and crash together to give us this incredible result. So I'm going to end the show there because we've got the greater wealth coming up very, very soon in a few minutes at
10 minutes.
there you go, 1 p.m. So gentlemen, thank you very much for being on the show. I'm not sure if Shak, if you're sticking with us for the greater wealth, but we'll see the rest of you very, very, very soon here on Edge Radio Australia. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Thank you very much for being part of Freedom Friday. Thanks, Dan, all the way in the US, mate.
Monday.
Yes, Freedom Friday on
God
Monday.
bless America and Australia.
Damn right. With that, thank you very much for being part of the show. It's Freedom Fridays here on Edge Radio Australia.